Bob Pollock is with us from the Extension Service, brought to you by Marcus & Mack, a law firm representing injured people. Mr. Pollock, good morning to you.
Good morning.
You can call Bob at 479-1160 or at 349-WCCS. That's 349-9227 if you have a question for him about lawns and gardens and such. And we've got another warm week coming up. We're going to have temperatures in the 50s again.
It's a little warm.
Yeah.
It's nice. We'll take it.
Uh-huh.
I'd rather it be a little colder.
Yeah.
Now, if it stays this way,
mm-hmm.
if it just stays this way, but it won't.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's the fluctuation that is going to cause damage, if anything causes damage.
Right. Those quick up and downs.
So you look outside and you see what has happened so far this winter. It hasn't been a situation where plow trucks have damaged any shrubbery. And you know, it's been one of those really, really mild winters. And so folks looking out at their lawns and dreaming of the spring, and maybe they're thinking about what they want to put in their garden. I know the seed catalogs have come, and they've looked them over, maybe ordered some seeds, and maybe some people getting around to planting some, do you think?
They might be.
Indoors?
Yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't recommend doing it outdoors
outside
just yet.
Definitely indoors.
Yeah. So what
you could be giving it a go.
What goes into that? Flower. Let's talk.
No.
Because most people aren't going to plant flowers indoors, unless they want some early spring bloomers.
Right.
But
or they still may be enjoying their amaryllis or some of the Christmas type plants.
Yeah.
May still be blooming, and they still may be enjoying that.
But maybe they want to get a start on some tomatoes or even some lettuce that they could even eat now.
Yeah, and I think the shorter day crops, some of the herbs, and the lettuces. Microphone issues over there.
Yeah, the microphone won't stay still. So,
but those shorter day crops, and crops that may do a little better with a little less light.
Mm-hmm.
We still have these short days, so we have to enhance the hours of light every day if we're really going to get a good crop. If we have good, big, open, sunny windows where a lot of light comes in all day long, you'll be fine. Mm-hmm. If you don't, then you need to supplement that lighting if you really want to have a good crop.
Yeah.
It's going to take longer. Usually the temperatures inside are warm enough. Occasionally people will put a heat mat underneath, especially and usually those have electric cables running through those mats, and you just plug them into a regular outlet, especially to germinate seeds, just to give that little extra, get that temperature in the 70s. For a lot of things, that works really well, just to bump that up a little bit. Because if you keep your house a little cooler, maybe at 68 or somewhere in that neighborhood, having that little bit extra heat just on the flat or the containers you're using will make a difference, get those seeds to germinate quicker. Yeah. And then that speeds up your whole cycle then, both the growth cycle and the harvest cycle, and then turn around and start all over again.
Yeah. Well, with some of those, of course, you're going to get them to sprout, and if you're using pods, it's easier to trim those out. But you eventually do need to trim them out, or weed them out, thin them, so that one of those stalks will begin to really take strength.
And the cell packs are easy enough to get. You can get cell packs to fit in a flat. And then you just need a tray underneath that so that you can water through. And
they'll drain through.
And you almost need to transplant at least once because you can get too much volume of soil so that when you wet that soil, it stays wet too long, or it gets too wet, and then depending on the seed, it may rot before it germinates. So the water management is critical. So if you start with a smaller size container or cell, that is it's easier to manage that.
If you happen to have a functional greenhouse, maybe you're planting tomatoes or something like that. But if you don't, you're just doing something in the house, then you might want to wait a little bit for tomatoes. So what are some of the plants that you might...
You can grow them indoors.
Yeah.
So, as long as you have enough room, and again, the light, that if you can set up just a bank of fluorescent lights is fine. We usually try to stay away from the typical incandescent light because it gives off too much heat. Although you could use those if you if you made a mini propagation unit where you wanted the temperature warmer. Those bulbs give off heat, so as long as you can keep the bulb far enough away and it gives off enough light to do the job, you can actually make a little bit of a tent or a mini greenhouse inside and provide a little extra heat just by get your light and heat from the use of that bulb.
There you go. UV, is there any specific type of bulb that will give you more or less UV in case you want to?
Usually the regular fluorescent tubes will work, but they make the grow tubes, which just gives off a little different wavelength of light. Then those will work as well, or you can even combine the two together, one regular and one grow light.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So, folks, you want to get started on that, and of course, we've talked before about using this month of January and into early February to think about changes in your garden plot if you're going to be doing anything there. And we probably did something last fall if we were thinking about that, but maybe over the winter things have occurred to us. Well, maybe I will change my garden plot. Maybe I'll move to a different area. This isn't the time to go turn over dirt, is it?
No.
Okay.
It's not frozen
That's
in
true.
some places, so
That's true.
as long as it's the moisture content is not too damp. But it's hard this time of year because you get a little bit of moisture. It doesn't evaporate at all, hardly.
Yeah.
So it just stays wet. So even though we may have had several days without rain or even a little sun, if you'd start to dig in that soil, it'd be probably pretty saturated.
Some people leave their carrots and maybe one or other two root vegetables in the ground in the fall, and then they harvest them during the winter as they need them. Would the weather that we've had this year be better for that or worse for them? I can see them rotting if it's too wet.
Yeah, if it's too wet. But the ground's not frozen, so as long as you can manage the moisture content or divert that away from there, they may store pretty good because the soil temperature will be above freezing.
Yeah.
And we're trying to keep it from freezing. Once that even the root vegetables freeze when they thaw, you're not going to like what
they're nothing but mush.
They then become organic matter.
Nothing but mush. Let's go down into the potato cellar where the potatoes are starting to sprout a little bit of eyes and things like that. Got to go clean those off, don't we?
Yes.
About time to do that.
Yeah, because it's taking energy from that tuber to grow those sprouts. It's trying to grow a new plant. So if that's happening pretty readily, we need to look at temperature. It's probably the key thing there. It's too warm. They need to be cooler. That'll slow that rate down. And, of course, they need to be in the dark.
Yeah.
When they're in the light, then they'll get that green coloration just on the skin and underneath the skin. So that's an indication of too much light. And then both temperature and light will affect the sprouting.
And once they grow those sprouts on them, they get all soft.
Yeah, so if you can put them in a basket, they like to have some air movement around. We don't want to get them too containerized. We don't need them in anything that's plastic. So oftentimes we buy them in their, if you buy a bag of potatoes, they used to always come in a paper bag.
Yeah.
Now you're either getting if you're buying individual ones that are kind of sealed.
Yeah.
Almost in shrink wrap, or a 3-pound bag or whatever.
Yeah.
Make
Plastic
sure those
with some holes punched in.
Yeah. So hopefully there are holes in it, but even it's good to kind of bring that home, take it out of that plastic, and put it in if you have a wire basket, anything that'll breathe a little bit, and then able to cover it so that it's dark.
Yeah. Okay.
And keep it as cool as possible. You can keep those down to really, if it'd be best to have them under 40 degrees.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Which
they're going to store the longest.
This year they could be out on the porch and.
Well, yeah.
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 This is the time
With
to do
just
it.
a little bit of insulation around a container, you probably could. That might be the best place for
Good
them.
spot for them.
Yeah.
All right. Very good. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Little
Thank you.
Indoor gardening as we get ready to think about planting season. That's Bob Pollock. That's Bob Pollock.